Today I'm going to take some clippings from my lime tree. I like to take a few clippings every year and I basically root them and they make little lime trees of their own. And then a year later they actually make great housewarming gifts or birthday gifts. So let's get started. You want to take a branch and you want to make a slice in it at a 45-degree angle right near some kind of a notch. That seems to be the easiest way for a plant to regrow root. So I'm going to trim this one just above the notch. So I have this leaf with a little notch at the bottom, and I'm just going to cut it at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to cut off part of the notch and leave a little sliver of it alive. And then I'm just going to stick this in some water, and I'm going to leave it there while I'm getting everything else ready. So I got a couple more ones I want to notch up here, and I'm going to stick that one in the water and cut it right through this last little notch. Okay. Now I'm going to prepare my soil. I like to use some seed starting soil because it's nice and loose and it gives plenty of room for the roots to grow. So I like to fill my containers up a little bit more than halfway with some very fine seed starting soil. After I wet them down a little bit, I want it to be about half full with soil. Next, I like to add a little bit of water to the soil. And it can be kind of hard to get bone dry soil to accept water, so I just kind of flood it and let the water drain out. Next step is to finish preparing each of my individual clippings. I like to pull off all of the leaves except for the top two. I just pinch them off right near the stem. You want to be careful not to rip into the stem while you're doing this because that could damage the plant. Then I take these top two leaves and I trim about 2/3 of them off because I don't want the plant to dry out too quickly. I basically make a little kite out of the leftover leaf. And then I'm going to stick this back in the container of water while I prepare the other couple of clippings. So the reason you have to pinch off most of the leaves is because plants evaporate water through their leaves, and until this plant regrows some of its roots, it's going to be desperate for water. So we want to try to contain as much of that as we can. You don't want to take off all the leaves because that evaporating water actually helps draw water up through the stem, and that's going to help the plant generate new roots. So I'm going to take these top two leaves and I'm going to trim about 2/3 of them off. And I'm going to wind up with a little kite-shaped piece of leaf left. My next step is to dip the stems in some root growing hormone. So I just dip it about an inch or so in. And it's going to be pretty caked because it was wet. So I'm just going to tap it off to leave just a fine coating of powder on it. And then I'm going to stick that into the soil approximately an inch down. You don't want to go all the way to the bottom of the container because you want to leave a little bit of room for the roots to grow down. So I'm going to take my trimmed up clipping. It gets kind of caked on there. So I'm going to tap off the excess and then I'm going to stick it in my soil about as far as the root growing hormone comes up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little microclimate around each one of these clippings. I essentially like to take a plastic bag and I try to get as much air in it as I can. And then I'm just going to put it around the container. It's important to select the right size container that'll fit with whatever you're using to cover it with. But when you put this in the sun, it'll generate humidity inside of the bag, and that'll help to keep the plant from drying out while it's struggling to grow roots. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut a little slit up the corner of the bag, and that's going to create just a little pocket of airflow, which will help keep the plant from getting moldy inside of this bag. Cut a little bit of the corner up. I don't want to go up too high because I do want to hold in humidity. I just want to make sure it's not completely suffocating in there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put these in a little container so I could water them without getting water all over the place. And then I want to put these containers in a nice sunny spot because that's what's going to generate the humidity inside of the bags. So I want to put these in a nice sunny spot. So it could take a couple of months for these things to start generating new growth. And this one is one I did over the winter, and you can see that it's just starting to grow some leaves right here. I would keep it inside of the plastic bag until those leaves are about a ½ inch long, and then you want to take it out. So if you don't get new growth in the first couple of months, don't get discouraged. As long as your plant stem has a little bit of green to it, it's still alive and it still has a chance to keep growing. After about 6 months, your plant should look something like this. And after about 1 year, if it's nice and healthy, it should look like this. This one needs to be repotted soon. After a few years, your plant should be ready to start growing limes. They start out as little buds like this. So after the flower falls off, you should be left with a little green lime-looking bud like this. It takes a few months to grow, but eventually you get limes.